Hello and welcome to the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley's program for this week. Every week we bring to you a new program on education, technology, innovation, and humanitarian service. My name is Mitty Chang. I'm president of this Rotary Club, and it's my honor to introduce to you one of our club members who will introduce to you our guest speaker of this week. Below me, I go ahead and wave hi to everyone. Sviako. Sviako is one of our members and board members as well. He is usually based out of South Africa as a consultant, but today he is in Zambia, I believe, and Sviako is traveling around doing amazing things. Sviako, I will pass it to you to introduce our guest speaker, Sando.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Mitty. So I'm really excited that we'll be able to hear from Sando Johnson today. He's been a good friend of mine for many years, maybe 5 years or so. How long is it? Oh, probably. We first met actually in Milwaukee, in the US, where Sando was one of the most active volunteer leaders for the One Campaign, an organization that I worked for. And Sando's doing a whole host of amazing things. On his Africa, he's originally from the continent, and he gives back as much as he can. He has a passion for technology, so the projects that he's involved with throughout Africa are focused on technology, ICT as it's referred to in many parts of the continent, and innovation, and all sorts of amazing stuff. He really partners with some of the top ICT professionals across the continent in an effort to encourage more innovation, and I'm gonna let him tell us a whole lot more about that. But very cool guy, and I'm really happy that he's able to share his story with us today. Sando, take it away.
Fiako, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Sando Johnson, and it's an honor to talk to all of you today about some of the things that my team and I have been working on in the region. I've been knowing Fiako for a long time from the One Campaign, and it's interesting to see how all this is coming around. And he's all over there, all over the region, doing some really cool stuff. So, and thank you, Mitty, for the opportunity to share some of our stories. So to get things started, I guess I would just start from the beginning. I think that's the easiest way. I started SMAG Media in 2001, basically as a custom software development firm. It wasn't really a great big idea. It was me and my friends, talented developers in different specialty, in different areas, and we all came from different large companies, and we wanted to sort of like chart our own directions in the kind of software and things we built. Over the years, that took us into a lot of different industries. But the fast forward, sometime in 2000 and I believe 2008, I traveled to Liberia and was in a conference room when I overheard next door there was a meeting going on, and they had a lot of journalists from different countries. It was basically a meeting brought together by a donor agency that operated in the area called OSIWA. And they had brought together a bunch of journalists so that they can coordinate for the trial for Charles Taylor, that they were about stories and what was being published, so that everything is true. So funny how the world is spinning around. But anyway, that was the plan, that was the initiative. And one of the things that struck me there was, why did they have to fly all of these people into this conference room just to get them to collaborate? And knowing a little bit about how media organizations operated in the U.S., to me, I thought, maybe something as simple as a shared blog or some secure communication between the two of them, or just some instant messaging between the two of them would make that process much more easier. And that sort of started us down this road. In 2010, we was looking at, okay, what's on the market? What is it that can allow people to use good software? I mean, we can build any software. The idea is, in that region, you really need to have things connected. And when you talk about cross borders, you know, many countries and different operators, different, you know, technology sets. You know, you got Nigeria where things are a lot advanced, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire. And by the way, I'm referring to West Africa because in the beginning we were focused on West Africa first. We just wanted to know what was available to connect things. So we started this initiative, and in 2011, right before the elections in Liberia, we traveled to Liberia to see, you know, to test our waters and see what would fit. And that led me into the world of international development. All along, as Falco mentioned, I've been passionate about you know, international development work, how technology can help improve services that is offered locally to in different countries, everything in health and business. You know, I as a, you know, for running an IT company, you know, and dreaming about what it takes to, you know, to own one, I imagine that the technology and challenges that a lot of young entrepreneurs on the ground will face if they wanted to do similar things we were trying to do, connecting people and technology and you know, mobile operators, et cetera, et cetera. So I got introduced to this idea called the election situation room. So this was the first sort of first connection that my team and we got to get into governance. And the idea was for the Liberian elections, they were bringing together all of the stakeholders, government, police, political parties, civil society, and basically putting all of them into a room as stakeholders and then pushing information into that room, allowing them to make decisions together rather than everybody's making decisions in their own silo and therefore creating more chaos. The Situation Room initiative initially was, we weren't a part of it. We were trying to, you know, do our thing, like I said, but it got to a point where they asked us, hey, can you guys come in here and help us make this thing work better? Through our previous relationships with some of the mobile operators on the ground, we're able to set up this network where we were able to publish information online. That ended up becoming a project that they, at that time they were called the Liberia Media Center. They were able to publish at that unofficial election results and data from the polling stations on this site, and they were doing it near real time every 15 minutes. That's because we were basically, we built a software that was collecting the data from the field using SMS and automatically publishing it on a website that I believe the link we're going to share with Midi. That website generated over 4 million hits within the first 4 days, and it was the only place you could get information about what was going on the ground. And I mean, there were journalists in the field, there was information going, but verifiable information. And the whole process was automated. And that basically launched us into the world of the election situation room. Now, granted, like I said, my team and I were developers, so we weren't particularly at that time governance experts. So we had to work with local partners who were, and OCY was also in one of those. And by the way, OCY is one of the regional office for the Open Society Foundation, OSF. Because of that experience, that then took us into Sierra Leone elections the following year, where we met with another partner who brought in another technology company, and together we did a similar initiative, but this time expanding more. SMAG Media has always been building relationships with mobile operators. That's basically our niche. And we have a data center in the US here in the Milwaukee area that basically mirrors some of the technologies they have. So that way, when we leverage our software with our platform, we're able to just connect with them and sort of like attach this value added service under what they're providing. And that gives us a space to innovate with pretty much anything we can come up with to do. This is a huge challenge, by the way, because you have to find customers who really understand what you're trying to achieve and to do and see the benefit in the results it can provide. But after the Sierra Leone elections, we had spent so much time understanding the value of governance and these type of tools. This is a very, very niche market. And one of the market leaders in this area is a company organization called Ushahidi. They're based in Kenya, and they've got a really great product that allows you to basically customize this and use it in your own way. But they focus more on collecting information from the public, and what we were doing was more specific to the providers or the organizations on the ground who wanted to service their people and and secure the information. They had places where there were not internet connections. How do you solve that problem? Things like that Ushahidi wasn't really built to do. And that took us to, after consulting on other elections, that took us into Malawi in 2014, where we had our biggest implementation. There, because of our past experiences, the regional office there, OSISA, and their local partner, and I also got to meet this really great organization called HEVOS with their technical lead. They came up with some really cool opportunities for us to innovate. Now, as I mentioned before, you really can't do a lot of this work from Milwaukee or Chicago, and the people who lead these efforts are not like my team. We end up becoming more of like a support technology team. It's the very talented software engineers, developers, IT. Some of them they have these great ideas. They just don't know how to implement it. Local partners you find on the ground in technology, in governance, in health, any area you can think of, and they're the ones who basically tell you what they believe will work best in their particular country, and then you help them basically create that realization with software. And so in Malawi, that ended up becoming several initiatives. The one that was most popular was something called Go to Vote. And it started out with a piece of technology from another technology company in Kenya called Code for Africa. They had put together this website where people can go and check on basically their governance status, where should I be on elections day, et cetera, on a website. The team wanted to make this information more real-time, integrated with the Elections Commission, and they also wanted to be able to make people have access to information in case, whether they had internet connection or not. And that led to us utilizing, again, our integration with the mobile operators there, generated over 1.4, almost 1.5 million SMS communications. It was basically the tool that people used to know and understand and check and validate their information before getting to the poll. And that was a huge, huge help. And it all came through, again, by those local team with our support. We've sort of been leveraging every experience, building better, making the system more secure. But if you kind of notice a pattern here, we're always building something for someone else to use and brand and publish. It's not really our own tool. Our software, which we call the SMAG network, it's the platform that integrates with the mobile operators. It's just a delivery mechanism, and it's a vehicle for us to build and deliver custom software on. But these branded tools, that's what people come and ask us to do. We basically go around setting them up. And for me personally, the passion has really been in healthcare. Being that I'm also from the region, I've seen some of the devastating impacts of lack of health securities and healthcare infrastructure, and has had. It's still having today. And you name a particular region or country, and you will find something, whether now or before, that's the case. So there are plenty of innovations going on, and mobile phones, as we all know. I mean, mobile phones just how you operate in the region, and mobile operators are they're how you get connected. They're not really a lot of big just internet providers. There are some, by the way. I'm not saying that there aren't, but most of them leverage the technology to reach the mass amount of people using mobile phones. And so we look at that whole idea strategically, and then we try and put the SMAG network in places where it fits strategically for us to be able to leverage a project. So if there isn't an initiative happening, you see that go further down the priority list. that has all been leading us to our own initiative we've been working on for the past several years. And FIACO has always been one of our best supporter for that project, which is in healthcare, and where we're looking at injecting transparency and accountability in the delivery of healthcare services to sort of strengthen it, utilizing these type of technologies. So it's not just about mobile phones, it's about what works in a particular region and how can it be strengthened with these type of technologies. So I'll give you an example. There is a project that we'll be working on to pilot, and we'll be bringing it up to raising some funds in crowdsourcing pretty soon, where this technology that we have, which we call GARA, there is an organization that supports local farmers so that when they go and sell their products to cooperatives, some of that money that they receive in cash value for their farming products can go into a health trust that they can then utilize when they go to get health services, and basically pay for the services directly from that health trust using their phone. So the phones really will be topped up just like regular credits, but these would be health credits instead, and they can utilize that to pay for their services. But that's just 1/3 of the equation. The other third of the equation is for the provider who's providing the care to receive that money that's been exchanged. They have to adjudicate the service they provided, and that's a really, really big word for small hospitals in rural parts of different countries that we're trying to do this at. And it varies from country to country, and it requires a lot of work up front to be able to even perform the first transaction. So, but that's how the system will work. You have to validate and adjudicate the service provided before you can receive that fund. And and we intend on doing this by working with partners who are on the ground. So let's say, for example, someone is supposed to be receiving their 40 cents a day portion of their medicine for they're taking daily HIV treatment. That amount is subsidized by a donor partner. They will be able to use GAR credits to pay for that medicine, and then the service will be adjudicated, and then before the donor partner will release the funds to the provider. That way you are basically paying for care after it's delivered rather than before it's delivered, which is a good way to put a check on transparency and accountability. So that's some of the things we're developing and doing, and with the SMAG network. And again, in governance, we're looking at more elections. We had a long discussion, like about a 2 to 3 month process in Zimbabwe to utilize some of the same technology we used in Malawi for pre-election activities. That's still in discussion, and we're planning on doing what we did again in Liberia for this year, and next year in Sierra Leone. So that's I guess a short version of the SMAG network and what we've been doing over the past several years. So I think what I can do is I can show a presentation here of some of the numbers, like from the Malawi project. So let me share my screen. So here's a slide that we've put together for the local team that actually did this work. They actually put this together. That data project ended up having, like I said, over 1.4 million SMS. To do that, we had to verify with the Election Commission over 238,000 registered partners, individuals. So people basically were saying, hey, am I registered to vote? Is my details correct? And it was checked and validated securely. And then they all via SMS with encoded, and we did it in multiple languages too, so not just one language. And they were able to receive information back. We had our observers who were collecting information in the field. They were all trained, over 4,000 observers. There was also a social media component with this as well, to get the information out there, and tons of media reports and things like that. So this is a video of that, and I think I got some other pictures of us, some in the team together working on this, like showing this picture. We were there sending out some SMS and and doing some of that work. And some of the messages, here's what it would look like. It worked on any kind of phone. People would just send in messages and send it into our, what we call it, the code 5VOTE, 5VOTE, and then the system will automatically reply to them. So does that help? I think
that's awesome. Thank you so much, Sando, for sharing that message and that story with us. So that photo was your team in Malawi. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. So during your presentation, I was wondering this, but I guess maybe that answers it. But I was wondering, how do you connect with so many IT specialists and activists on the ground in these countries? If you're based in Michigan, is that right? So it's just kind of like, how do you make that connection? So do you? So it sounds like your team does go there in person. Now, are you there? How often are you there in person doing this kind of like training and assistance on the ground? But also, is there some kind of online portion to it? Like, you guys do online training as well?
Yeah. So remember now, at the core, we're a software team, right? So
Right.
we leverage everything, best practices. That's kind of the other side of our business here. We mentor teams and utilize any kind of agile project in a process and tool and everything. So tons of traveling, as Fialco can attest to that, constantly on the ground. But because you do this for a long time, you end up building a network. So, I mean, most of the countries we've been working in, I have contacts on the ground in different parts of the industry, whether it's at the mobile operator or I need a developer or a lead developer team or group. And that's really what the passion is for me. Being from the region, I imagine me as that guy on the ground that someone's calling and asking me and working with me on different initiatives. So building that relationship is the key. And so I try to find more work and projects that we can take on the ground, rework with these guys, try to create more of a consistency in regards to some of the projects and innovations. None of the stuff I'm saying, it's simple. And we do it on, like, if I say shoestring budget, that would be exaggeration, so less than shoestring budget. But then at the same time, we leverage a lot of online tools. Our scrums are done online. And I try to introduce them to a lot of methodology that I would do to any team working here and give them the online tools that we use, irrespective of whether I'm involved or not, or if they have to do it themselves with other groups. So that's kind of how we keep in touch.
That's wonderful. So you just mentioned your scrums are online. So for
Yes.
our viewers watching who don't work in tech, so scrums are generally short sprints for projects where everyone's assigned a specific project and you come back maybe after like a 2-week period to showcase what you did for this project. So maybe, Sando, you could talk a little bit about, and what's an example of one of the scrums you guys recently worked on, or it doesn't have to be recent, but and also, like, what platforms do you use to collaborate on for the scrums in?
It varies. To me, so I've been working with a lot of them. I do a lot of consulting with firms here, and so you walk in the office, and all of a sudden you hear of a new tool. You're like, oh, okay. And so I have a whole bunch of them. But my favorites are I use a lot of Atlassian products. So recently we worked on this website project in Nairobi, and we had a team member who was in Johannesburg, another team member that was in Liberia. The product owner was in Kenya, and we were here. 2 of the developers were here. So we used Confluence to do all our requirements gathering to help them understand, what this person wanted and how they wanted it. And remember now, these are not all developers on the team. So we have product owners and marketing person and all of that. So we use Confluence to bring it all together. And then when we were implementing the site, of course, we use Jira, and that plugs directly into the way we build everything, which is we use this kind of concept called continuous development, where you're constantly writing your code and deploying it without trying to and leveraging feedback as to determine the quality of what you're building, rather than going a silo and doing it for like 6 months. That was how I started out building when I started my company, and I got a lot of pains from that. So I learned how to do it much better with especially when you're working as a virtual office, basically. So that's pretty much how we do. Even for the Malawi project, I was training. We use another company called Target Process, and I was training the team that we had hired on the ground how to utilize and implement Target Process using GoToMeeting from the US.
Nice.
And that was interesting, very interesting process. But now I hear they're even using it themselves, so it's fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's incredible how like technology can also connect and bridge you continents away, right? That's
right.
I mean, this call is also a great example. I mean, Swako being in Africa right now. Speaking
Exactly.
of Swako, I think he might be frozen right now. But Swako, if you had a comment, go ahead and oh, there you go. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
I think I was frozen for a moment. Sorry, poor internet connection. Talking about technology over here, it has its challenges. So Sando, thanks so much. I'm really inspired by, in general, your story as someone who comes from Liberia, went to the U.S. but always keeps looking back and looking for opportunities to actually contribute, and in a big way, not through small donations or little projects here and there. You actually are taking on the big beasts, the transparency, accountability, like looking into proper governance, and then making elections more effective, more transparent. So I did have a couple of questions. So for the elections work that you're doing, I know you mentioned that you've partnered with quite a few organizations, EVOS and some others. Now, do you get support from the government as well? Like, is the government kind of invested, or at least in the few examples that you have, the few countries where you have done that type of work, have you gotten from the government invested in ensuring that their elections are actually transparent?
Yeah. So the one thing I want to say is, look, when you're a technology or any company and you go into a country in Africa and you try to do something, the worst thing you can do is try to do it without the guy who would be doing it themselves on the ground, in front of you. I mean, that's the best way you can describe it. And if you go with that mentality, you're going to lose. So one of the things I learned right away was finding local partners and developing relationships with them. Those local partners already have some relationship with the different government initiatives you'll be doing. So whether you're dealing with the telecom authority who needs to give permissions for certain aspects, or whether you need to deal with the financial branch who needs to give you some authority for what you're doing, or even the election body itself, the election commissions. And so they're the ones who have the structured relationship, the defined relationship, and you basically are working through their channel. So we've been lucky where every elections we've had an implementation with that local partner. So like in Sierra Leone, the National Election Watch, or in Liberia, Rotary Media Center, or some of the other local partners there, UN Women, or in Sierra Leone, in Malawi, the Malawi Election Support Network, or NICE. These guys are already existing civil society partners. They're doing work on the ground. Zimbabwe is another one too. They have some sort of mandate. Their staff is certified to be the person at the polling station. It's not some guy from Milwaukee hiring someone to be at that polling station. No, it's that local partner who has their staff they've been working with for X amount of years, that is on the ground, who we just train to supply you with the information that you need for the system to work. So the case of Malawi, at the time we started, there was a lot of politics happening in regards to some financial crisis that was going on, and people didn't just trust the whole process at all. And this tool that that the MEIC, the team that we supported, put in place, that allow people to use their mobile phones to validate their information, changed the narrative. It basically said, well, I don't trust the process, but I know my information is correct because I just checked it. You have no idea how someone will believe a response on the SMS, how important it is, but that was very powerful. So them getting that validation back that, hey, your information is correct, and here's the verification of it, which, by the way, we use. We were using, some innovative technologies from Google to do some of that stuff as well. Google has helped us. I should have mentioned that in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Malawi, that was able to make this kind of stuff work. And so for us, the way we see it is, we will continue to work with local partners. That's why it's so hard, because you got to keep constantly traveling, meeting them, talking to them, capacitating them, learning. That's the big part, learning from them, adapting that in what you're doing, and then before you can deliver the product. So, does that help?
That's
very cool. It's good that you're really invested in that process. I completely agree with what you're saying to the local partners and all of this. I do have another question as well. I know you mentioned Gara, and that's such a cool project. It's I'm passionate about that kind of stuff as well. So I think the health credits idea is so key, and especially as we see more of those donations going into developing countries that are becoming more I guess cash based, right? So this is sort of a form of this where you're not actually giving things, but you're enabling people who need access to, whether it's healthcare, agricultural services, or like whatever else, to get that locally. But you're giving them the financial ability to do that through these credits that go through their mobile phone or whatever. Now, what is your view in general? Have seen kind of that evolution of donations coming from the Western world into different parts of Africa. Like, do you think that those sorts of technologies are really going to make things more streamlined, more transparent, more effective in the long run?
So I got two views on that, right? Because I'm from the region as well, and I work in the industry. So here's the thing. Look, it doesn't hurt to help. If you're helping and you feel like what you're doing is something good and valuable, and you have done the research to know that this method you're doing to help is going to be very, it's going to make an impact, help. There's no problem with that. There are great organizations. I've met so many very talented, so many good organizations. I want to work with tons of them who are taking that help and doing great things with it. I have a unique perspective, as you know, because we worked with the One Campaign, and the One Campaign represents a lot of these organizations that are doing some tremendous work. So you get to see the value. Nothing made me more proud to drive in Freetown one day and see a billboard for PEPFAR up, knowing fully well that I was a few months earlier at Summerfest in Milwaukee, advocating that people should lobby their government, their leaders, and support the increase of the funds and make sure that the commitment that the U.S. made to PEPFAR was going to remain. Just those two things that connect for me, it's completely perfect. So I think if you're an individual, you do your research, you find your partner, you should do that. But this new idea, or this idea, that's all about we want to see results before we pay for it. Right? That's an idea that's it's just proliferating now. And so in healthcare, that's big, because there has to be a really, really good sustainable effort in creating health systems that are sustainable. like for example, during Ebola, crisis, they came and built these makeshift locations, right? And then when the Ebola crisis ended, they tried to repurpose some, and some that broke down and moved away. There, a lot of those kind of things are good, and they help solve the problem. But long term, how are we solving that? Some other countries in the region, that for example don't have a blood lab. Why don't an investment be made in those infrastructures so that things can get responded to much quicker than the way they are right now, because you have to move, a lot of things. Like one of the things I hope we can do eventually with the SMAG network is to be able to facilitate a lot of these logistical headaches that create problems in healthcare, right? I had the pleasure of working as a consultant for the Wisconsin Department of Health. They have a department that was basically responsible for doing what's called a modernization project. That project has since kind of phased into other things, but at that time they were looking at, in Wisconsin, which have a huge Amish community as well as the regular public. They have these programs and these services that really strengthening the health providers, the big hospitals and the small hospitals and the local programs. And these technologies are really simple. They're not that complicated in my mind at all compared to what I see other big companies are doing. But these things provide a huge value. And so I learned from a lot of that, and that's what we're building into some of the things we're doing today, so that we can provide it to governments or organizations or services and leverage mobile partners, technology partners who are on the ground, and to strengthen these kind of things. So that's where my head is, and that's the kind of stuff that I spend my days doing when I'm not traveling or working on someone's software.
That's awesome. So we're just about out of time for questions. I did have one last question for you, Sando, and then I'll let you wrap it up. But I was wondering, from when you originally started on the ground, maybe you could tell us a little bit about how do you identify local partners? And also, in your experience, have you found that the local partners are pretty receptive to working with you? Being, I guess, like you're coming from America, right? And you're coming in, maybe you're coming from the tech industry, and you're saying, "Hey, I'd like to work with you guys." Do you find that they're pretty receptive to that?
No, they're not. I'll be honest with you. And the key is you shouldn't take it personal, because people are skeptical. You're coming from somewhere else. You sound a little different. They don't know what you're offering. You're telling them all these great things, but they don't know. So no, they're not. You basically earn their respect by delivering something valuable. Right. And so for us, and also failure too. I'm not afraid to admit there have been failures as well. So, but because of those failures, we learn a lot of stuff. And then so when we're doing it again, we're doing it much, much better. So you just have to keep your ears in the ground. Don't always go where all the crowd's going, right? So it's because one person did something great a few years ago, and everybody just calls that person's name. That's not the only person that can do what you're trying to achieve. Keep your ears in the ground. Talk to people. Don't be afraid to, listen to a lot of people in the different countries we've worked in have great ideas, and they all want to tell you about it. And you sit down and you will eventually find the right people. And that's kind of the approach I do.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you, Sando, for your time this week. We really appreciate it. As a link to SMAG Media will be available below this video, as well as some other relevant links that Sando will be sending to us. We appreciate your time for watching this week, and we thank you. Sando, I'm going to turn it to you for some last words before we say bye to everyone.
Thank you. Look, this has been a great opportunity to talk. Me and Falco are good friends, and I'm glad that he was able to put this together. And really, thank you very much. And your network of supporters and members who are interested in these ideas. There are really, really very good, talented people in all the countries that we've worked in, and my team. We're just grateful that we get a chance to do some of this work, and we'll just continue looking for ways to keep doing it, despite all the challenges and everything. And I think that region, and not just in Africa, it's South America as well, which is another place we've started to do some stuff. There's just a lot of really neat things that can happen on the ground that can change the trajectory that people are looking at right now. And all they need is just not massive support, just simple, and it'll make a huge world of a difference. So, thank you again for listening to my little story.
Thank you, Sando, for your time. And members and guests, we invite you to leave a comment at the bottom of this meeting. Feel free to let us know what you thought, let Sando know what you thought, or ask Sando a question. Thank you so much. We will see you next week. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.